Hi everyone. Yes, well, I'm back again, and as you may know, if you've already subscribed to this new channel of mine, Disney Magic Nostalgia, my friend Sam, very good friend, has just uploaded who will be one of the guest users of the channel. Has just uploaded his review of the 2019 Lion King, and I've sat and watched it. Great video, very honest and very good analysis of the film. And I've just felt a bit compelled to do my own because I have seen it. I saw it on Saturday, and yep, all the hype around it of this remake of this Disney classic. And for me, The Lion King holds a place in my heart because I'm quite certain that at 4 years old, that was the first film my mum took me to see was the original. Yes. Yes. This is like one of the biggest classics. And as I say, this is probably my second favourite Disney film with Aladdin just in front of it, which I said in the Disney Blu-ray, my Disney Blu-ray showing off video. And yeah, I'm gonna say that with the 2019 remake, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, but I knew it would have its problems. As with all these remakes, you know that they're going to have certain problems with them. These live action remakes. And the main problems I have with it is, as much as I enjoyed it, as much as how clever I kind of thought it was, is the changes that have been made. I mean, it's important that they do make changes, so it's just not a frame-by-frame carbon copy of the original animated classic. But in this case, the, for when the film opens, the Circle of Life scene, the opening scene to the film, is literally a frame-by-frame copy, which is clever, and I thought that was well done because if you look back in this original version, kind of fits the pace of the Circle of Life song very well, and how they recaptured that was good. Yes, as Sam said, it does look quite a bit like just a nature documentary. I mean the opening song, the very first shot you see of the sun rising is a bit of a different angle to how it opens in the animated film. Um, but instantly, from when I started watching, I went to see it with a friend, and we both really enjoyed it. But yeah, I do get the sense that this is going to be pretty much just out of all the remakes so far, this is probably going to be the one that's going to try so hard and maybe too hard to be shot by shot of the original. Um, yeah, and when the film goes on, the way Scar's introduced after the opening title appears, just after the introduction scene, the Circle of Life scene, is, of course, Scar catches a mouse. If you remember, Scar catches a mouse, and that scene's extended um, with the mouse running into the cave or in the entrance of Pride Rock, and and then it comes up with Scar saying, "Oh, it's not fair, is it?" Um, he's comparing the mouse to him, saying just being underrated and demoted, because he's now enraged at the fact that now that Mufasa's son has been born, he's no longer going to be the next in line to receive the throne. And then of course Zazu then turns up and he loses the mouse because Zazu Scar gets the mouse under his paw, he traps the mouse under his paw and he's about to eat it, and then Zazu comes and intervenes, tells him that Mufasa wants him to come so that Scar can explain as to why he wasn't at the ceremony this morning. Why Mufasa couldn't have figured that out, or why he just wouldn't have known that, I really don't get, since he must have known Scar was probably jealous of him, and why why would he want to be at the presentation of a cub that's supposedly going to take his throne? Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah, this is where some of the changes start to come in. and I say, yeah, it doesn't show as much emotion. But this is the thing. I was thinking about that when I was watching it, and I think because of what animation allows characters to do, particularly animal characters, is enables them to display more human-like emotions. Because supposedly, in a lot of animated films, they think and speak like humans. And as this is a story where humans aren't involved, there are no human characters. You think that you would expect that they can think and talk like humans, they can display their emotions like humans. In CGI, I mean, in this live action CGI, as impressive as it is, that's going to be a problem. And that, yeah, that really brings us to, what I must talk about is that, the most important scene in The Lion King, obviously, yes, Mufasa's death scene. I thought I enjoyed the stampede scene, but it did feel quite a bit rushed. It felt like a rush scene because you know what's going to happen, because you do kind of know what's going to happen. But to me, that scene in this version just feels rushed. And no, it certainly didn't feel as dramatic and as full of emotion as the original version did. The stampede scene is done really well. The CGI looks good. And again, they do try and make it pretty much a scene by scene, a frame by frame sort of copy. And then the scene, yeah, it plays out the scene with Scar, with Scar grabbing onto Mufasa's front paws and going, "Long live the king," and then just throws him off the cliff. And then Simba, but then the big scene is when Simba follows that last wildebeest that catches up with the stampede, and then that leads him to his father's dead body. That's the scene that's the sad scene in the original film. This is supposed to be the really sad scene where Simba slowly comes to the realization that his father is dead, and that huddles up to his body. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know where to go. And yeah, the same thing happens in this version. But I mean, Simba, yeah, he cries. He's kind of calling out for help, and then the scene where Scar comes and basically fully manipulates Simba into making him think he's responsible. There's new dialogue added here to this scene, which I think basically to add to Simba's trauma. The new dialogue Scar has is such as saying, "Oh, his father was raising him to be a great king, and this is how he's repaid him." Supposedly just to kind of, so easily, just how convincing and how manipulative and just how bad Scar's character is, that he thinks that he can, that he has just knowingly killed his own brother. His plan has succeeded, so he can take up the throne. He plans to kill Simba. He plans to kill Simba. And he's just succeeded in the first part of his plot. He succeeded in the first part of his goal, is to kill his brother, the king. And then this leads to this scene where he really, just tries to really fool Simba into making him believe it's his fault. Because at the beginning of the scene, Scar takes Simba down to the gorge and tells him to work on his roar. And while Simba's doing that, Scar goes to the hyenas, signals the hyenas to go and scare the wildebeest to start the stampede, and that's the bit you don't actually see. They don't actually show that bit. I remember that they don't show the hyenas preparing to start the wildebeest stampede in this version, and so yeah. So and then at the end, of that scene where Scar tells Simba, the only thing he can do is to run away and never return. Yeah, and then that's what happens, and then Scar gets the hyenas chasing after Simba, supposedly to go and kill him, so that Simba's out the way, then he's free to take the throne. And yeah, right, that scene in the original turned from very emotional and sad to actually being funny when Simba has to jump off the small cliff. and over the thorn bush. It was when the hyena jumps off to go after him once he's outside the Pride Lands, and yeah, I think it was Banzai. Yeah, Banzai, the hyena. He then jumps off and falls into the thorn bush. That doesn't happen in this version, and I can see why. They aren't able to pull off the comedy. They aren't able to pull off the, they aren't able to pull off the expressions, and they just aren't able to pull it off in this live action, which is the problem. The idea is that they can't see Simba when he's jumped off the cliff. They assume that the fall just would kill him, but then it turns out Simba didn't. Simba just landed near the bottom of the cliff, and the hyenas can't see him. So they're convinced he's as good as dead. So you can go back and tell Scar he's dead. And yeah, I think I remember right. They do call out to him. If you ever come back, that we'll kill you. Yeah, they do that. And yeah, this is and then of course it leads to Simba walking out into the desert. Which eventually leads to him passing out from lack of food and water. And the scene where Timon and Pumbaa come in, basically he's trying, once again, is them charging all the buzzards that gather around Simba to supposedly eat him, because they think he's dead. But, right, and Timon and Pumbaa, I like them. Once again, they lack the emotion, they lack the sense of comedy, they lack the sense of fun that the animated versions had. I mean, Nathan Lane, I can't remember who actually voiced Pumbaa, but yeah, Nathan Lane and him, they were really Timon and Pumbaa. What they added, what they brought to the characters was so nostalgic and really fit the characters well. They were able to, the dialogue they delivered, the expressions they added, that they used, really brought those two characters to life as the comedy duo. And in this case, these new voices, they sound okay, but once again, Timon and Pumbaa, they lack the personality. And I think a lot of characters in this version, they do lack personality. And even Mufasa to a certain extent. And I mean, even though he's voiced by James Earl Jones, the original voice actor who voiced him in the original, I mean, yeah, I mean, he still delivers the dialogue very well. But, I mean, particularly in the scene where he scolds Simba for going off with Nala to the elephant graveyard and supposedly putting themselves both in danger, the scene where he scolds him, that's full of emotion for the first minute of that scene where Simba's being told off and explain what the consequences of his actions are, and he learns even kings get scared and even kings have to be cautious, because Simba's this fun, adventurous cub who believes that being a king means he can just do whatever he wants, and he can just do whatever he wants, go wherever he goes. But he's not aware of consequences, and that scene really teaches Simba a lesson before they turn to the before they get to the playful part of the scene, and then that's when Mufasa tells Simba about the great kings of the past being in the stars. But here's the thing. It doesn't even sound. Mufasa doesn't even sound angry in this version. He tells Simba the same thing. Some of the same dialogue is said. Some of it is changed. There's a bit more dialogue added in, but he doesn't. He just sounds like he's explaining to Simba why he's unhappy with him. He's explaining. He's explaining to Simba quite calmly about the consequences of his actions on that day. And that doesn't fit in the original version. Mufasa does explain, does appear to be angry, and does appear to be, and does kind of yell at Simba in the scene. But in this case, that doesn't happen. He explains it quite calmly, and then it just kind of moves on to the part where they play, to the part about Mufasa telling Simba about the great kings of the past, and then the scene with the song "Be Prepared" is changed. The song is shortened. It's got a different tone. I think, for me, that was a huge letdown, because I think "Be Prepared" is definitely my favourite, and probably is the best Disney villain song. Out of all the songs in the film, I think that's my favourite. Yes, I prefer it to Hakuna Matata, like the Nostalgia Critic said. Why they did that, I don't know. Is probably just to make time for new scenes in this version, because there are there's more extensions to scenes rather than new scenes, but there's no emotion in the song. It's Scar explaining his plan to the hyenas, and then with a slower paced, shorter version of the song, it's how the scene carries out. Which brings us to this, and of course, going back to the scene where Simba and Nala are in the elephant graveyard, and I mean, that scene in the original film was so good and so epic. The first kind of action-orientated scene where Simba and Nala have to run from their lives in the elephant graveyard, and that those scenes of them sort of slipping down the elephant spine skeleton. I mean, that was like epic. You don't get any of that in this film. When the hyenas engage them from coming out the elephant's skeleton, the hideout part of the elephant graveyard, supposedly in the elephant skeleton's head, and they just kind of interrogate them. The hyenas basically interrogate Nala, Simba, and Zazu into staying for dinner so they can distract them long enough to kill them and then eat them. And then the difference is that more hyenas appear in this scene, and Mufasa then just comes in suddenly and frightens them all with his roars and jumps about to get them in line. And then the scene with Shenzi, the lead hyena, who was originally voiced by Whoopi Goldberg, actually says, confronts Mufasa, and he explains and he reminds her of why the hyenas have banned from coming into the Pride Lands. There's no real feeling to the scene with Simba, with Simba and Nala having to flee for their lives and having to outrun the hyenas until the Mufasa can get there to save them. There's no scene with the hyenas trying to cook Zazu in the birdie boiler. Those things are a bit of a disappointment. For me, that was a disappointment. And then another scene that's a big disappointment. Another scene I think that was going to be quite a disappointment is the scene where Simba's father, Mufasa, appears in the clouds when he speaks to his ghost. You don't actually see Mufasa. It's just his voice in the clouds. Now, why they weren't able to do something with this CGI in live action, why they weren't able to make him appear as like a real lion's shape, you think they'd be able to do that. I mean, I don't know. Does the clouds with lightning striking? Do they think that's more epic? And it really isn't. No, it isn't. I do kind of like the scene, but it just doesn't have the feeling, the emotion, the intensity that these big epic scenes that from the animated film, they don't have the sense of emotion and the intensity that they had in the original version. And the Hakuna Matata song, it's still fun, it's still catchy. As I say, once again, Timon and Pumbaa's lack of personality really doesn't help very much, but it's still a decent version of the song. I mean, when it comes to Can You Feel the Love Tonight, I actually really like the new version. But I think it's more or less just with a different singer and a kind of synth added to the original track. I do like it, but yeah, I mean, there's not really emotion in the scene. One of the big complaints I've heard about the film is that this supposed footage of these scenes of Africa, of South Africa, they don't look like what you'd expect these parts of Africa to look like. And I haven't seen many nature documentaries based mainly on Africa, so I don't really know. But yeah, I mean, I can see they've put a lot of hard work into the film, a lot of effort trying to make it as close to the original as possible whilst giving viewers new experiences. I mean, you've got to remember that these live-action remakes, they are made ideally probably to target a new audience, like this generation of kids. The kids would probably like it, and they'll probably like it more. But the thing is, because The Lion King is such a classic, I think most young children, by the time they're old enough to start watching cartoons and Disney films, they will have been introduced to this. They'll have seen this already because they'll have been shown it by their parents. I mean, these films like The Wizard of Oz. I was really young when I watched that. It was made 30 some odd years before I was even born. And, I love that. And I'd love that just as much as a film that came out when I was a little kid that I would watch and grew to love. One thing I really did like, I really did actually like the scene with the end scene, the climactic fight. Not to say I preferred it, because it doesn't have the epic music. It doesn't have that epic music score that the original animated film had. But I did enjoy it until the point where Scar's defeated. Where Scar flicks flames at Simba and then pounces on him, and then after that fight scene that was so well done in the original version, it's kind of well done in this version. And whilst you've got that sort of slow motion scene of them swiping each other and trying to wrestle with each other, they actually had a bit of dialogue in the scene. They actually had a bit of dialogue with Simba going, "Oh, you'll never win, Scar." And then the scene when Simba kicks Scar off the cliff, and because he tried to get out of the situation by telling Simba that the hyenas had the idea to kill Mufasa. And then they pounce on him. That's done pretty much the same way. But the thing is, just before, the scene where they actually are supposedly killed, where the flames rise and they all burn, that doesn't actually happen. The hyenas just simply attacks Scar until he's dead. But no, that doesn't happen. What happens is, for 2 seconds, you see the hyenas attacking Scar, supposedly killing him, and then the rain just kind of comes down, puts out the fire. And then, of course, you get the end scene with Simba taking the throne. And of course, that other scene where Scar's forcing Simba back, still basically convincing Simba that Mufasa's death was caused by him, when Simba's supposedly put it behind him, and Simba slips off the edge of Pride Rock, and then just before Scar's about to repeat the death of Mufasa with Simba, to throw him off the Pride Rock into the fire, and then Simba has that flashback when, just before he's about to throw him off, Scar reveals to Simba that it was him that killed Mufasa. You get the same thing. You get the flashback of Simba shouting "No!" as he sees his father fall, and then what actually happens is, instead of Simba jumping up and pouncing on Scar, he swipes him away, then jumps up. The emotion in the original, when Simba demands Scar to, supposedly chokes him and demands him to reveal the truth to the Pride, that it was him that killed Mufasa. No, another emotion was seen. Another emotion was seen, I should say. I don't think it's a complete letdown, but you say it will never match the original. And I will say that on Saturday, I actually met someone just after it who'd been to see it at the same time I did with my friend, and they say they preferred it to the original. Right, that's their opinion. I've also met someone who said the same thing about Aladdin, and that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I personally don't think. Of course, I knew that none of these remakes are likely to top the original. I don't think they will. I think if you go in thinking it's going to do that, then you're in for a letdown before you've even seen the film. My last big problem I have with the film is the voice of young Simba. Yeah, right. It sounds pretty good. The main problem I have with him is when he sings the song "I Just Can't Wait to Be King." He doesn't display the personality. Doesn't display the energy in the song that Jonathan Taylor Thomas did. I mean, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, he became quite, a big child star back in the 90s. and this was one of his most recognisable credits amongst other films and TV shows as well. So yeah, he does, doesn't show, and it's not his. I suppose this new actor, it's not his fault because he's a kid. He's a kid actor, and you've got to give them some. You've got to give them some sort of, what's the word? What word? I can't think of the word I actually want to say. You've got to let. Oh, just say. I'll let. Since I can't think of the word I want to say, I'll just go say you've got to let back on them a bit because they are in kid actors. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was exceptionally talented, perfect voice and personality to add to the character of young Simba. The voice of adult Simba, I kind of like. I can't remember what's his name that voiced him. I think it's quite a well-known actor, but Matthew Broderick. He's not Matthew Broderick. Matthew Broderick did an excellent job. It kind of sounds a bit like Matthew Broderick, but it adds a certain twist to the character. I actually thought that was done quite well. Still, adult Simba displays the most emotion, I think, of the characters in the film, which is pretty good. And just one other thing I'll say is that the scenes that they've extended rather than being... the one completely new scene in there is when Nala is trying to get away, escaping from Pride Rock to go into the Outlands to find help. And Scar's on patrol and she has to hide from him as he comes her way. And she's interrogated by Zazu, so Nala basically tells Zazu to keep it a secret from Scar that she's going away to get help because the Pride Lands are in disaster. There's drought, there's no food, no water. The hyenas have scavenged everything. Yeah, that's actually quite a good scene. And then another scene that they've added on is the scene where Timon and Pumbaa and Simba are lying on the grass, and when Simba's asked what he thinks the stars are, and that's when he remembers what Mufasa told him about, the great kings of the past being up there and watching over the living. And that reminds Simba of home, and he starts to miss his home. That scene in the original was done really well. He goes up to the air. He goes up and breathes out a bit of his hair, which goes back to Pride Rock. It blows back to Pride Rock and gets into Rafiki's, and Rafiki finds it, and that's when he reveals he can sense Simba and knows that he's alive. In this new version, what happens is it's quite a bizarre scene. Basically, it's extended for about 4 minutes. Simba coughs up a bit of hair, it blows away, and then it's actually eaten by a giraffe, and then literally pooed out, and then you get this sequence of an animal rolling this pile of giraffe shit with the hair inside it, rolling it as a ball, and then eventually the hair blows its way to Pride Rock. Rafiki finds it, and then reveals he's alive. It's an impressive looking scene, but it's just not needed. But it adds a bit of a funny touch, I suppose, to try and make the kids laugh. And then what's it? The one all-time issue I have is the reference in this to Beauty and the Beast. If you remember, when Simba returns to Pride Rock with the aid of Nala and Timon and Pumbaa, for them to be able to for Simba to successfully locate Scar, he has to get past the hyenas, and Timon dresses up and does the hula to distract them, and they chase Timon and Pumbaa away so to clear the way for Simba and Nala. In this version, what they do is they sing a line from Be Our Guest, the song in Beauty and the Beast, and they change the lyrics to fit it in with this story, like like say, or have a slice of pork or something as they're trying, as they're trying to pretend that Pumbaa's a meal for the hyenas. Ugh, I just don't get why they did that. Right, despite the fact that there's a number of issues with this film, and I agree with a few of the points that Sam makes, I'm not going to say like he did, like I disliked it. I still really liked it. I still enjoyed it, and I would still buy the Blu-ray because I probably would want to watch it again. Okay, well, that's really about all, to be honest. That's really all I can say on it. That's my problems, and more or less what I like about the film. It does look really good, visually stunning, and I say it isn't done as well as The Jungle Book, I feel. Which, given that The Jungle Book was the same director, is a bit surprising. I still felt in the live-action Jungle Book, which I know was very successful and very well received. A lot of people liked it. The characters in The Jungle Book expressed, the live-action animals in The Jungle Book expressed emotions very well. And in this case, it just hasn't happened. Okay, well that's my review of The Lion King 2019. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Thanks all for watching. You're all awesome. See you soon. Bye.